my sister stole my dead daughter's belongings and told her church I abandoned them, my response left her sobbing in the parking lot. My daughter Lily passed away 8 months ago. She was 7. Brain tumor. The doctors found it too late, and I held her hand in that hospital room until she was gone. I am not the same person I was before. I don't think I ever will be. My sister Karen is 4 years older than me and has always been the golden child in our family. She found religion about 6 years ago and has made it her entire personality ever since. Every conversation leads back to her church, her pastor, her women's group, her mission trips. She posts Bible verses on social media every single morning and has a cross hanging from her rearview mirror. I have nothing against religious people, but Karen uses it as a weapon. She uses it to judge, to control, and to make herself look better than everyone else. After Lily passed, I could not bring myself to go into her room for months. I kept the door closed. Her stuffed animals were still on her bed. Her drawings were still taped to the walls. Her little shoes were still lined up by her closet. I was not ready. I told my family I was not ready. I made it very clear that I needed time and that nobody was to touch anything in that room. Karen came to visit about 3 months after the funeral. She said she wanted to check on me, bring me some food, spend some time together. I let her in because she is my sister, and I thought maybe she genuinely cared. She stayed for a few hours, and I remember feeling grateful that she did not push me to talk about Lily or try to give me some speech about how Lily was in a better place now. She left, and I thought that was that. 2 weeks later, I finally worked up the courage to open Lily's door. I had been having a better few days and thought maybe I could sit in there for a while, maybe hold one of her stuffed animals, maybe just be close to her things. I opened the door and the room was empty. The bed was stripped. The drawings were gone. The stuffed animals were gone. Her shoes, her clothes, her books, everything was gone. I thought I was losing my mind. I called my mother in a complete panic, and she got quiet on the phone. She told me that Karen had taken everything. She said Karen told her that I had given her permission to donate Lily's things to the church, that I had said I could not bear to look at them anymore and wanted them to go to families in need. I had never said that. I had never said anything close to that. I drove to Karen's church that Sunday. I did not call ahead. I did not warn her. I walked into that building during their morning service and I saw Karen standing at the front of the room next to her pastor. She was holding one of Lily's stuffed animals, a little purple elephant that Lily slept with every single night, and she was crying. She was telling the congregation about how she had rescued these items from a grieving home, how she had made sure they would go to children who needed them, how she had been burdened by watching her sister fall apart and knew she had to do something to bring light into darkness. The pastor was nodding and the congregation was looking at her like she was some kind of saint. I walked straight down that center aisle. Karen saw me coming and her face went white. The pastor stopped talking. Every single person in that room turned to look at me. I did not yell. I did not scream. I stopped right in front of my sister and I said, loud enough for everyone to hear, that she stole from a dead child's bedroom. I said she took my daughter's things without permission and lied to our family about it. I said she was standing there using my grief to make herself look good in front of her church. I said Lily died holding that elephant and now Karen was parading it around like a prop. Karen started stammering, trying to explain, looking at her pastor for help, but I was not finished. I told the entire congregation that my sister never once asked if I was okay, never once offered to help with funeral costs, never once sat with me while I cried. I told them the only thing she did was wait until I was too broken to notice, and then empty my daughter's room like she was clearing out a storage unit. I reached over and took the elephant from her hands. She did not try to stop me. I looked at her and I said that Lily would have been so disappointed in her aunt. That was when Karen broke. She started sobbing right there in front of everyone, her hands covering her face, her shoulders shaking. The pastor put his hand on her arm, but she pulled away from him. She looked at me with tears running down her cheeks and tried to say something, but no words came out. I turned around and walked back down that aisle with the elephant tucked under my arm. Nobody tried to stop me. Nobody said a word. I could feel every single person watching me leave, and I did not care. I got to my car and sat there in the parking lot for 20 minutes, maybe longer. My hands were shaking, so bad I could not hold the steering wheel steady. The elephant was in my lap, and I kept running my fingers over its worn purple fabric, the same fabric Lily used to rub against her cheek when she was tired. People were coming out of the church now, walking to their cars, and some of them were staring at me through my windshield. A few of them looked angry. Most of them just looked uncomfortable, like they did not know what to do with what they had just seen. I knew I needed to leave, but my body would not cooperate. My legs felt like they were made of concrete. My chest was tight and every breath hurt. I finally got the car started and drove home on autopilot, not really seeing the roads or the other cars. When I got inside my house, I went straight to the couch and collapsed with the elephant pressed against my chest. Then I cried harder than I had since the day Lily died, the kind of crying that comes from somewhere deep and dark and does not stop until your body has nothing left. My phone started ringing before I even woke up the next morning. I could hear it buzzing on my nightstand, over and over, pulling me out of sleep. I grabbed it and saw my mother's name on the screen. I let it go to voicemail. It rang again 30 seconds later. Then again. Then my aunt's name showed up. Then a cousin I had not heard from in 3 years. I turned the phone off and pulled the blanket over my head, but I could not fall back asleep. I lay there staring at the ceiling, feeling the weight of what I had done settling over me. At 10 o'clock, someone knocked on my door, loud and steady. I ignored it. The knocking got louder. Then I heard my mother's voice calling my name. I dragged myself off the couch and opened the door. She pushed past me into the living room before I could say anything. She was dressed for church, still wearing her good shoes and her pearl necklace, and her face was red. She started talking before I even closed the door. She said I needed to apologize to Karen right now. She said I had humiliated the entire family in front of God and everyone. She said people were calling her all morning asking what was wrong with me, why I would do something so cruel, why I would attack my sister in her own church. I stood there and let her talk. She said Karen was only trying to help me. She said Karen saw me falling apart and knew I could not handle looking at Lily's things anymore. She said Karen was being charitable, giving those items to families who needed them, and I made her look like a monster when she was just trying to do the right thing. I asked my mother if she really believed that. She stopped talking and looked at me. I asked her if she honestly thought Karen had permission to take everything from Lily's room. My mother's face changed. She said Karen told her I had agreed to it. I told her I never said that. Not once, not ever. I told her I made it clear to everyone that nobody was to touch anything in that room. My mother started to say something, but I kept going. I told her that Karen waited until I was broken enough not to notice, and then she emptied my daughter's room like she was cleaning out a storage unit. I told her that Karen stood in front of her church holding Lily's elephant like it was a prop in her performance. My mother looked away from me. She said I was being unfair. She said grief was making me see things wrong. She said I needed to think about the family and stop causing problems. I told her to leave. She stared at me. I said it again. She picked up her purse and walked to the door, then turned around and told me I was going to regret this. Then she left. After my mother left, I stood in my living room for a long time, not moving, just breathing. Then I made myself walk down the hall to Lily's room. I had not been back in there since I found it empty. I opened the door and stood in the doorway looking at the bare walls and the stripped bed and the empty shelves. I forced myself to walk inside and actually look at what was missing. I found a notebook in my kitchen and brought it back and started making a list. The stuffed animals were obvious, all of them gone. The clothes too. But as I looked closer, I saw more. Lily's art supplies were gone, the big plastic bin full of markers and crayons and colored pencils. Her favorite books were missing from the shelf, the ones we read together every night. The special blanket my grandmother made for her before she was born, the one with her name stitched in the corner. I opened her closet and saw that her shoes were gone, even the tiny pink sneakers she wore when she was 3. I checked her dresser and found the jewelry box empty, the one that had her baby teeth inside and a lock of hair from her first haircut. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely write. Karen did not just take toys to donate. She took pieces of Lily's whole life, things that could never be replaced, things that had no value to anyone except me. I sat down on the floor of that empty room and finished my list. When I was done, I counted everything. 37 items. 37 irreplaceable pieces of my daughter were gone. On Wednesday, Karen's pastor called me. I saw the church's number on my phone and almost did not answer. But I picked up. He said his name was Pastor Mike and he wanted to talk to me about Sunday. His voice was calm and measured, the kind of voice people use when they think you are unstable. He asked if I would be willing to meet for Christian mediation to heal this family wound. He said it was important for everyone to come together in forgiveness and love. He said Karen was devastated by my accusations, and the whole church community was praying for our family. I asked him if Karen told him she stole from my dead daughter's bedroom. He was quiet for a second. Then he said that Karen explained the situation to him, and there seemed to be a misunderstanding about permissions and intentions. He said sometimes grief makes us see things in ways that are not accurate. He kept talking about forgiveness and letting go of anger, and how holding on to bitterness only hurts ourselves. He said Karen was a valued member of their church family, and he knew she would never intentionally cause harm. I told him that Karen could be devastated in her own home with the items she stole from mine. He started to say something else, but I hung up on him. I drove to the church on Thursday afternoon. I did not call ahead. I just got in my car and went. The secretary was sitting at the front desk when I walked in. She looked up and her face changed when she recognized me. I told her I was there to get Lily's things back. She said she did not know what I was talking about. I told her that my sister donated items to the church that did not belong to her, and I needed them returned. The secretary got very still. She said she would need to check with Pastor Mike. I told her I did not need to talk to Pastor Mike. I needed my daughter's belongings. She picked up her phone and made a call, speaking quietly. then hung up and told me to wait. I stood there in that lobby looking at the bulletin board covered in announcements and photos of church events. Karen was in 3 of the photos, smiling with her arms around other women, holding a Bible, standing at a microphone. After 10 minutes, the secretary came back with a folder. She opened it and showed me donation logs with dates from over a month ago. She said all the items were distributed to families in need weeks ago. I asked her for the names of the families. She said that information was confidential. I asked her how she could give away stolen property. Her face went red. She said the church had no way of knowing the items were taken without permission. She said Karen provided everything and assured them it was all being donated with family approval. I stood in that church office and felt something break inside me that I did not even know could break any further. Everything was gone. Scattered across town in strangers' homes. I would never get it back. That evening, a woman I did not know called my cell phone. She said her name was Viola Mathis, and she got my number from the church directory. She said she needed to talk to me, and could we meet somewhere? I almost said no, but something in her voice made me agree. We met at a coffee shop on Main Street. She was older than me, maybe 50, with gray hair and kind eyes. She sat down across from me and said she was in the congregation on Sunday. She said she heard everything I said to Karen. She told me she had been watching Karen operate for 2 years now, and she had been uncomfortable with it for a long time. I asked her what she meant. Viola leaned forward and said that Karen had a pattern of making herself the hero of other people's tragedies. She said Karen always found a way to insert herself into situations where people were vulnerable, and then she would tell everyone how much she was helping. Viola said she saw Karen do it with a woman whose husband left her, with a family whose house burned down, with a teenager who got pregnant. Karen always positioned herself as the rescuer, the one who stepped in when nobody else would. Viola said she mentioned her concerns to Pastor Mike once, but he dismissed them. He said Karen was just enthusiastic about service, but Viola knew better. She said what I did on Sunday was brave, and she wanted me to know that not everyone at that church believed Karen's version of things. The next day, Viola called me again. She said she had been asking around and talking to people at the church. She told me that Karen had been telling people for months that I abandoned Lily's things and refused to deal with my grief properly. Karen said I was falling apart and someone needed to step in before I did something worse. Viola said Karen had been positioning herself as the responsible sister who was saving her family from my instability. She said extended relatives I barely knew had heard this version, people from other churches Karen connected with, even some of the families who received Lily's things. My phone had been full of messages from family members all week telling me to get help and stop attacking my sister. Now I understood why. Karen had been building this narrative for months, making herself look selfless, and making me look broken. Viola said several people told her that Karen talked about me at women's group meetings, at prayer circles, at volunteer events. She always framed it as concern, as burden, as her cross to bear. And everyone believed her because Karen was so devoted, and I was the grieving mother who never came to church. My father showed up at my house on Saturday morning. I opened the door and was surprised to see him standing there because he had barely said anything since Lily died. He was never good with emotions or hard conversations. He just went quiet and distant. But now he was on my porch asking if he could come in. I let him inside and we sat at my kitchen table. He looked older than I remembered, more tired. He told me he had been driving to Lily's grave every week since the funeral, just sitting there in his car because he did not know what else to do. He said he never knew how to help me or what to say. He said when Lily got sick, he felt useless, and when she died, he felt like he failed her. I started crying. He reached across the table and took my hand. He said he knew what Karen did was wrong. He said he should have been there when she came to the house. He said he should have protected Lily's things and he should have protected me. He said he was sorry. We sat there crying together for the first time since the funeral, and it felt like something loosened in my chest that had been tight for months. On Monday, Viola called again. She said she did some digging and found out something I needed to know. She said Karen kept several of Lily's items for herself. Viola saw them in Karen's house during a church committee meeting last week. She said there was a silver necklace on Karen's dresser that looked old and valuable. There were also some drawings framed on the wall in Karen's hallway. Viola said she did not think much of it at the time, but after everything that happened, she went back through her photos from that day and found pictures that showed the items clearly. She sent me the photos. I looked at them on my phone and felt my whole body go cold. The necklace was my grandmother's. She gave it to Lily 2 weeks before she died. The drawings were ones Lily made in the hospital, pictures of our family with a big sun in the corner. The rage that flooded through me was different from before. It was colder and sharper and harder. This proved that Karen was not being charitable at all. She was taking what she wanted and hiding behind God. She picked through my daughter's things and kept the valuable pieces for herself, while giving away the rest to make herself look generous. I met with an attorney on Tuesday morning. His name was Julian Lawson, and Viola recommended him. His office was small and cluttered with files. He listened to everything I told him, taking notes, asking questions. When I finished, he sat back in his chair and was quiet for a minute. Then he told me that legally Karen committed theft, but proving it would be very difficult. She was family. My mother gave her access to the house. There were no witnesses to her taking the items. The church believed they received everything legitimately. He said I could file a civil suit against Karen for the value of the items, but it would be expensive and emotionally draining, and I might not recover anything since most of the items were already gone. He said even if I won, collecting a judgment from a family member was nearly impossible. I asked him about the items Karen kept for herself. He said that was theft too, but again, proving it would require evidence and Karen would just claim I gave her those things. I left his office feeling powerless and angry at a system that could not help me even when someone clearly did something wrong. I spent the rest of the week avoiding my phone and avoiding my family. My mother called 6 more times before she finally gave up and sent a text message saying we needed to talk in person. My father called once and left a voicemail asking me to please come to dinner on Friday night. He said it was important and he was asking me as a favor to him. I listened to that voicemail 3 times because hearing my father ask me for anything was so unusual that I almost did not believe it was real. On Friday evening, I drove to my parents' house with my stomach in knots. I had not been there since before the church incident, and I was not sure what to expect. Karen's car was in the driveway along with my uncle's truck and my aunt's sedan. I sat in my car for 5 minutes trying to decide if I should just leave. But my father had asked me to come, and that meant something. I went inside and found everyone already sitting around the dining room table. Karen was next to her husband, and my mother was at one end with my father at the other. My aunt and uncle sat across from Karen looking uncomfortable. Everyone stopped talking when I walked in. My mother stood up and hugged me, but it felt stiff and forced. I sat down in the empty chair between my father and my uncle, and nobody said anything for a long minute. My mother finally cleared her throat and said she had called this dinner so we could resolve this situation as a family. She said what happened at the church was unfortunate, but we needed to move forward and heal. Karen started crying before my mother even finished talking. She said she was so sorry I was hurting and she never meant to cause me pain. She said seeing all of Lily's things sitting in that room unused was breaking her heart, and she thought she was helping me by donating them to families who needed them. She said she thought I would be grateful that other children could benefit from Lily's belongings. My aunt reached over and squeezed Karen's hand. My uncle nodded like what Karen was saying made perfect sense. I looked at my father and he was staring down at his plate. My mother said she understood I was grieving, but I had overreacted at the church and embarrassed the whole family. She said Karen was trying to do something good and I had twisted it into something ugly. She said I needed to apologize to Karen and to the church, and we needed to put this behind us. I felt that cold rage flood through me again. I looked directly at Karen and said that what Julian told me was that she committed theft. I said he told me that taking someone's belongings without permission is a crime, regardless of what you do with them afterward. Karen's face went pale. My mother started to interrupt, but I kept talking. I said Viola told me that Karen kept several of Lily's items for herself, including my grandmother's silver necklace and Lily's hospital drawings. I said Karen did not donate everything like she claimed. She picked through my daughter's things and kept what she wanted. My mother's mouth fell open. She turned to look at Karen. Karen was shaking her head and saying that was not true. She said she only kept a few small things as memories of Lily, and she was going to give them to me when I was ready. I asked her why she had them framed on her wall, and why she was wearing my grandmother's necklace if she was planning to give them back. Karen did not have an answer for that. Her husband shifted in his seat and would not look at anyone. My uncle cleared his throat and said, "Maybe we should all take a breath and calm down." I said I was perfectly calm, and I was just stating facts. I said Karen lied to our mother about having permission to take Lily's things. I said she lied to the church about me abandoning those items. I said she lied about donating everything when she kept valuable pieces for herself. I asked my mother if she could look me in the eye and tell me that was acceptable behavior. My mother looked older than I had ever seen her. She said she did not know Karen had kept anything. She said Karen told her I had given permission and she believed her. I said that was the problem. Everyone always believed Karen because she was the golden child who could do no wrong. My father finally spoke up. He said Karen needed to return everything she took and apologize for lying. Karen started crying harder. She said she was trying to help and everyone was attacking her. Her husband put his arm around her and said maybe they should leave. My mother said no one was leaving until we worked this out. But there was nothing to work out. I told everyone at that table that I did not forgive Karen, and I was not going to pretend this did not happen just to make family dinners less awkward. I said what she did was unforgivable, and I was done trying to make other people understand that. I stood up to leave, and my father stood up with me. He walked me to the door and hugged me tight. He whispered that he was proud of me. I drove home and cried in my driveway for 20 minutes. 2 days later, my phone rang with a number I did not recognize. I almost did not answer it, but something made me pick up. A woman's voice said my name and asked if I had a minute to talk. She said her name was Alicia Sutherland and she was Lily's first grade teacher. I remembered her immediately because Lily loved her class and talked about her all the time. Alicia said she heard through the school community what happened with Karen and the church. She said she needed to tell me something that had been bothering her for months. She said Karen came to the school about 2 weeks after Lily's funeral. Karen told Alicia she was making a memorial scrapbook for me and asked if the school had any photos or artwork from Lily's time there. Alicia said she made copies of everything in Lily's file and gave them to Karen because she thought it was a kind gesture. She said Karen cried in her office and talked about how worried she was about me and how she wanted to do something special to honor Lily's memory. Alicia said she never heard anything more about the memorial, and now she was sick thinking about what really happened to those photos and drawings. She said if Karen lied about having my permission to take things from my house, then she probably lied about the memorial too. I thanked Alicia for calling and told her she did nothing wrong. I asked if she would be willing to write down what Karen said to her and what she gave her. Alicia said yes immediately. She said she would email me a statement by the end of the week. After we hung up, I sat on my couch feeling numb. Karen had been planning this for months. She went to Lily's school and manipulated her teacher into giving her more of Lily's things. She used my grief as a cover story to collect items she wanted. The memorial was just another lie. I wondered how many other people Karen had approached with fake stories about helping me. That night, Karen texted me for the first time since the church incident. The message was long and started with her saying she was praying for me. She said she knew I was hurting and could not think clearly because of my grief. She said she forgave me for embarrassing her at church and in front of our family. She said she wanted to move past this as sisters, because that was what Lily would have wanted. She said our family needed to heal together, and holding on to anger was only hurting me. She said she loved me and would always be there for me when I was ready to accept her help. I read the message 3 times. Part of me wanted to believe her. Part of me wanted to text back and say I was sorry and we could fix this. But then I remembered her standing at the front of that church holding Lily's elephant like it was a prop. I remembered her crying and telling everyone how she rescued items from a grieving home. I remembered finding my grandmother's necklace in the photos Viola sent me. I deleted the message without responding. Viola called me the next morning sounding excited. She said she talked to 3 families who received items from Karen's donation and explained what really happened. She said all 3 families were horrified when they learned the truth. They wanted to return everything immediately. Viola said she was going to meet them that afternoon and collect what they had. She asked if I wanted to come with her, but I said no. I did not think I could handle seeing strangers holding my daughter's things. Viola said she understood and would bring everything to my house later. She showed up at 6 o'clock carrying 2 large boxes. She set them on my living room floor and hugged me before she left. I waited until she was gone before I opened the first box. Inside were books. Lily's favorite picture books that we read together every night before bed. There were stuffed animals, including a pink bunny that Lily got for her 5th birthday. There were some of her clothes folded neatly at the bottom. I opened the second box and saw Lily's favorite dress on top. It was yellow with white flowers, and she wore it to her last school picture day. I lifted it out of the box and held it against my face. I could smell the faint scent of her strawberry shampoo still in the fabric. That smell broke something open inside me, and I sobbed so hard I could barely breathe. I sat on my floor holding that dress and crying with relief and grief tangled together so tight I could not tell them apart. It was not everything. It was not even close to everything. But it was something. It was proof that Lily existed and was loved and left pieces of herself behind. Over the next week, I heard through Viola that people at Karen's church were starting to ask questions. Viola said she shared what she knew with a few trusted friends and word spread quickly. Several people came forward with their own stories about Karen. One woman said Karen took credit for organizing a fundraiser that someone else had actually planned. Another person said Karen exaggerated her role in a mission trip and made it sound like she did all the work when really she was just one of many volunteers. Someone else said Karen posted photos on social media making it look like she personally delivered meals to homeless families when really she just showed up at the end to take pictures. The pattern was clear. Karen used other people's struggles and other people's work to make herself look good. She was not actually helping anyone. She was just performing charity for an audience. The pastor called a meeting with Karen, and Viola heard from someone who was there that it did not go well. Karen tried to defend herself, but too many people had come forward with similar stories. The pastor told her she needed to step back from her leadership position in the women's ministry while the church looked into everything. Viola said Karen left that meeting crying and has not been back to church since. My mother showed up at my house on a Tuesday afternoon without calling first. She looked tired and older than I remembered. She asked if she could come in, and I let her because I was too surprised to say no. We sat in my living room, and she stared at her hands for a long time before she spoke. She said she knew something felt wrong when Karen took Lily's things, but she wanted to believe Karen was helping. She said it was easier to think Karen was being charitable than to admit her daughter was capable of something so cruel. She said she was sorry for not protecting me and for not protecting Lily's memory. She said she should have questioned Karen more, and she should have checked with me before letting her into my house. I did not say anything. My mother started crying and said she did not know how to fix this. She asked if I could find a way to forgive Karen because she was still my sister. She said family was supposed to stick together no matter what. I told my mother that some things break families permanently, and this might be one of them. I said Karen did not just take Lily's things. She used my dead daughter to make herself look good in front of her church. I said she lied to everyone, including our own mother, and she only admitted the truth when she got caught. I said I did not know if I could ever forgive that, and I did not know if I wanted to. My mother nodded slowly. She said she understood, but she hoped someday I would change my mind. She left without hugging me, and I watched her car pull away feeling nothing. I spent the next week thinking about what I actually wanted from this situation. I realized I could not get most of Lily's things back. They were gone and scattered, and some of them were probably already thrown away or damaged. I could not make Karen into a different person. She was always going to be someone who put herself first and used other people to make herself look good. I could not make my family see what she did the way I saw it. Some of them would always defend her because that was easier than admitting they enabled her. But I could control who had access to me and my grief. I could decide who I let into my life and who I kept out. I could protect my own peace instead of trying to fix broken relationships that were never healthy to begin with. I decided to stop trying to change my family's mind about Karen. I decided to stop explaining myself or defending my choices. I decided to start protecting myself the way no one else had protected me. Viola called me with an update about Karen. She said the church made it official that Karen was stepping down from the women's ministry. She said several families had quietly distanced themselves from Karen, and she was no longer invited to certain events and gatherings. Viola said it was not the dramatic public shaming some people might have wanted, but it was real consequences in the community Karen valued most. I asked Viola if she thought Karen learned anything from this. Viola was quiet for a minute and then said she did not think so. She said people like Karen usually found ways to make themselves the victim and move on to new audiences, but at least this community now knew what she was capable of. I thanked Viola for everything she did and told her I did not know what I would have done without her. She said she was glad she could help and she would keep checking in on me. After we hung up, I felt tired but also relieved. Karen was facing consequences. It was not perfect justice, but it was something. I did not feel happy about it. I just felt ready for this chapter to close. My father called and asked if I would meet Karen in person one more time. He said Karen wanted to talk to me and he thought we both needed closure. I did not want to do it, but my father asked me as a personal favor and I could not say no to him. We agreed to meet in a parking lot near the grocery store on Saturday morning. Karen was already there when I arrived. We sat in our separate cars for a few minutes before we both got out. We stood about 10 feet apart and neither of us knew how to start. Finally, I said we should just be honest with each other for once. Karen nodded. I told her that what she did was not about charity or helping me. It was about making herself feel important by controlling my grief. I said she used Lily's death as an opportunity to look good in front of her church, and she did not care how much that hurt me. Karen was quiet for a long time. Then she said she felt helpless after Lily died. She said she did not know what to say to me or how to help, and taking action made her feel useful. She said seeing Lily's room full of unused things made her feel like she was wasting an opportunity to help other children. I asked her if she really believed that, or if she was just saying what she thought I wanted to hear. She looked away and did not answer. I said she could not even admit she was wrong. Karen said it was more complicated than that. I said it was not complicated at all. She stole from me and lied about it and used my daughter's memory for her own benefit. Karen started crying. She said she did not know how to fix this. I said she could not fix it. I said what she did changed everything between us, and I did not know if our relationship could ever be repaired. Karen asked if I would ever forgive her. I said I did not know. We stood there in that parking lot looking at each other, and I saw my sister clearly for the first time. She was not the golden child or the religious saint or the helpful sister. She was just someone who needed to be the center of attention, even when it meant hurting the people closest to her. We both got back in our cars and drove away without saying goodbye. I called my mother and told her I needed distance from anyone who enabled or defended Karen's actions. She asked what that meant, and I said it meant I would not be coming to family dinners where Karen was present. It meant I would not listen to anyone pressuring me to reconcile or forgive. It meant I would not pretend this did not happen just to keep everyone comfortable. My mother said I was breaking up the family. I said Karen broke up the family when she stole from my dead daughter's bedroom. My mother hung up on me. My aunt called an hour later saying I was being dramatic and holding grudges. I told her she was welcome to believe whatever she wanted, but I was done explaining myself. My uncle sent a text saying I needed to think about what was best for everyone. I blocked his number. Some family members got angry and some apologized, but I held firm on my boundaries. It meant losing some connections, but I was choosing myself and Lily's memory over keeping everyone comfortable. For the first time since Lily died, I felt like I was protecting something that mattered. Viola called me on a Tuesday afternoon and said she had news. She asked if I could meet her at the coffee shop, and I drove there right away. She was sitting in the back corner with a small cardboard box on the table in front of her. When I sat down, she pushed the box toward me and told me to look inside. I opened it and saw Lily's silver necklace, the one that belonged to my grandmother, sitting on top of 2 folders full of Lily's artwork. I picked up the necklace and the chain was cold in my palm, and I could not speak for a long time. Viola explained that she talked to some people at the church who had been uncomfortable with how Karen handled everything. One woman remembered seeing the necklace at Karen's house during a committee meeting and mentioned it to Viola. Viola went to Karen directly and told her she knew about the items Karen kept for herself. She said Karen tried to defend it at first, but then just went quiet and agreed to return things. My father showed up at my door 2 days later with another box. He set it down in my living room and said Karen wanted me to have it back. Inside were more of Lily's drawings, some of her hair ribbons, a few books I thought were gone forever. My father looked tired and sad, and he told me Karen would not talk to him about any of it. I thanked him, and he left without saying much else. I spread everything out on my living room floor that night, and looked at what I had recovered and what I would never get back. The baby teeth were gone. Some of Lily's favorite stuffed animals were gone. Her special blanket was gone. I sat there on the floor and cried because I was grateful for what I had and heartbroken about what I lost. I found a wooden box in my closet the next day, and I put the necklace inside, then the drawings, then the purple elephant, then the dress that still smelled like strawberry shampoo. I added photos and the hospital bracelet Lily wore and a card she made me for Mother's Day. It was not everything, but it was enough. It had to be enough because this was all I would ever have of my daughter. My father called me on Saturday morning and asked if I wanted to meet him at the cemetery. I said yes and drove there and found him standing by Lily's grave with 2 cups of coffee. He handed me one and we stood there together looking at her headstone. He started coming here every week after she died and he never told anyone because he did not know how to talk about it. We stayed for almost an hour and then he asked if I wanted to get breakfast. We went to a diner near the cemetery and sat in a booth by the window. He told me about the time he took Lily fishing, and she caught a fish bigger than his, and would not stop talking about it for days. I told him about how Lily used to make up songs about everything and sing them while she colored. We talked about her laugh and her questions and the way she always wanted to help cook dinner, even though she made a mess. My father said grief made him see our family differently, and he wished he had protected me better. I said I wished a lot of things were different, but we were here now, and that had to count for something. We finished eating, and he asked if we could do this again next Sunday. I said yes, and we started meeting every week after that. We would stand at Lily's grave and then go to the diner and talk about her. Sometimes we talked about our family and how everything changed. Sometimes we just sat quietly and drank our coffee. It felt like building something new from all the broken pieces, and I was grateful to have my father back in a way I never expected. I found a grief support group that met on Thursday nights at a community center across town. I drove past it 3 times before I finally went inside. There were 8 other parents sitting in a circle and a counselor who welcomed me and asked me to sit down. Everyone introduced themselves and said their child's name, and I had to say Lily's name out loud to a room full of strangers. A woman across from me lost her son 2 years ago in a car accident. A man next to her lost his daughter to leukemia. Another woman lost her baby to SIDS. We went around the circle and every single person had a story that made my chest hurt. When it was my turn, I told them about Lily and the brain tumor and how my sister stole her things. I told them about the empty room and the church and everything that happened after. Nobody looked at me like I was crazy or told me I should forgive Karen or said anything about God's plan. They just listened and nodded, and one woman reached over and squeezed my hand. After the meeting ended, several people came up to me and gave me their phone numbers and told me to call if I ever needed to talk. I drove home feeling less alone than I had in months. I also started seeing a therapist who worked specifically with parents who lost children. Her office was small and quiet, and she let me cry without trying to fix anything. She helped me understand that grief was not something I would get over or move past. It was something I would carry forever, and I needed to learn how to live with that weight. Some sessions I talked the whole time, and some sessions I just sat there and stared at the wall. She never pushed me and never made me feel like I was doing it wrong. Slowly, I started to feel like maybe I could survive this, even though I would never be the same person I was before. 3 months passed since the church parking lot, and my life looked completely different. I stopped going to family dinners where Karen would be present. I stopped answering calls from relatives who wanted me to forgive her or move on. My mother called less often, and when we did talk, the conversations were short and careful. Some aunts and uncles took Karen's side, and I let them go without fighting. My father and I met every Sunday at the cemetery and the diner. Viola and I got coffee every few weeks and talked about grief and family, and how people show you who they really are when things get hard. She became a friend I never expected to have, and I was grateful for her. I still went to the support group on Thursdays, and I still saw my therapist every week. Some days I woke up, and the weight of losing Lily was so heavy I could barely get out of bed. Some days I could breathe and even smile at a memory without falling apart. I learned that both kinds of days were part of surviving this, and I had to accept them both. Karen and I had not spoken since the parking lot meeting. I heard through my father that she left her church and joined a different one across town. I did not ask for details, and I did not care. My family would never be the same, and I made peace with that. I protected Lily's memory, and I protected myself, and that was all I could do. The memory box sat on my dresser, and sometimes I opened it and held her things and talked to her like she could hear me. I did not know if she could, but it made me feel close to her, and that was enough.